All right, guys, this morning I'm going to talk to you about something that's very personal to me. It's a struggle I always have with the elephant in the room. Um, and it's not the same for everybody, but for me, it seems to be one that's, well, very pervasive. That's why they call it an elephant in the room. There's just not a whole lot of room for it. And it's something that has to be dealt with. It can't be avoided, it can't be overlooked. And it can't be overshadowed by anything else because it really affects everything else you deal with. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about here. Um, I'm the kind of person who has very high expectations of themselves of themselves. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I have very high expectations of myself. Um, I always want to put my best foot forward. I want to reach the highest mark. I want to leave the biggest impact, make the deepest impression. I want to make sure I've done all I could to the best of my ability. And I want to represent myself and the things that I care about or the people that I care about very well. What this ultimately leads to, at least for me, and doesn't for everybody, but it does for me. That's why I say this is personal. This turns into a pursuit for perfection. And mind you, I never achieve it. Never. Never. And you might understand what I'm talking about. You might be the same kind of person. You might have perfectionist tendencies, where that's I you fit the bill that I just described. You know, and you know all too well that when you have this kind of a mindset, nothing's ever good enough. And it's something I'm acutely aware of, or I wouldn't be making this video. But it's something I also understand that I need to deal with. And I do struggle to deal with it. And I vacillate. When I think I have a grip on it in a practical way of dealing with it, it always snaps back on me at some point because habits are hard to break. They're very hard to break. But you have to know what you can do before you embark on a quest to change a lifelong habit. And so, one of the things that's really helped me with this, besides reading good books and listening to good people, is playing the piano. Now, if there's ever a place where one wants to achieve perfection, it is in playing a musical instrument, right? That's not hard to understand because we sit in awe and admiration of classical composers and pianists and whatever other instruments are out there. I listen to a lot of piano because I play the piano. So that's what I'm relating all this to. But we sit in awe and admiration of these individuals because they seem to play flawlessly. I mean, there really is that expectation. And if you went to some place like Juilliard, or if you sat under a renowned piano teacher, if you were into the tutelage of great masters of any kind of instrument, you would know that they do press for the mark of achievement that reflects perfection. And so that's what you want to do. The problem with that is at least with a person like me, and maybe a person like you, is that because you never actually reach perfection, if you do, it's a spark in the pan, isn't it? It's ever so fleeting and doesn't stick around because we live in such a flawed world that's characterized and defined by imperfection, by corruption, by inconsistency. And so that's what you're competing with, and that's and that's why people who do seem to reach a standard of perfection stand out because they're different than all the rest. And it's not that one might feel like they need the attention from the perfection, although that does seem like a nice consequence. It's just knowing that you can do it. It's just expecting something of yourself that you believe is the essence of, or the pinnacle of the craft or the endeavor that you're involved in. And so when that mindset is carried over into everything else, and inevitably it does, in your family life, your relationships, your job, the way you do anything, that your any kind of skill set you try to hone, and your perhaps it's a workout routine, it's a building your body, or perhaps it's trimming down your body to that perfect weight, or it's maybe it's trimming your beard, right? A lot of you guys that watch me have beards, and the more you press for perfection, the greater chances are that you're going to mess it up. And so it leaves one with a feeling of disgust in themselves and the feeling that they're going to disappoint others around them. But this is something that you have to really, really work on if you are the kind of person that understands what I'm talking about. You really, and I do work on it quite a bit. But let me get back to what I was saying about how the piano has really helped me. I've been playing the piano since I was 5 years old, but just on and off. Most of the time, as a youth, I was just a terrible pianist because I hated it. I hated taking piano lessons. My mom made me take piano lessons and practice for an hour every day, but I just never got any good because I just didn't like it at all. I didn't care about perfection. I didn't care about the piano. But it wasn't until I turned 16 that I started going, hey, I think I found something I like, I want to do. And so, of course, I watched all the great masters of the particular genre that I care about. I watched them play, and I wanted to be just like them. And so you work and you work and you work, you study, and you practice, and you really apply yourself, and you just never feel like you're there. Well, you never are. You never are. But the difference in a person who understands what perfection really is and the person who thinks he knows what it is they're okay with not reaching perfection while always trying to strive for it. See, there's a problem here. There's a conundrum, a dichotomy here that you have to eventually face when you're dealing with this. Is that you can't take an extreme tack on this and go, well, I understand that my strive for perfection has made me miserable, and it's made me feel disappointed and disgusted, and never feeling good enough. I'm going to abandon that, and I'm not going to strive for perfection anymore. You don't want to become mediocre or sloppy. You don't want to do that. I think it's always good to strive for a mark. And the Bible even talks about striving for perfection, but it doesn't mean flawlessness in the way in which I've been speaking about it thus far. It just means striving for a level of maturity. Yeah, a level of maturity. And that's the difference. If you abandon striving for perfection, which is a level of maturity, you become sloppy and become mediocre, and that just you're never going to get over that. You will find yourself absolutely fruitless. So I think it's good. I think it's good to strive for that mark, but understand it's okay to never actually reach it. And here's the reason why. When you know pieces, like the pieces that I play a lot of ragtime. And I've studied and read about a lot of piano teachers and their methods. Um, and while they seem to be doing everything so perfect, the better you know a piece, and if you play it yourself, you know exactly where the keys are, what notes to hit and what notes not to hit. When you go back and listen to some of the great instrumentalists, you'll find out that they don't play perfect all the time. They don't. You hear the wrong notes, and you hear them leaving out and missing notes and things like this. But what they're good at is making the song recognizable and appreciated, and it still has the same effect on somebody. And no composer really thinks that anybody's going to play his piece to perfection. He expects you to reach a level of maturity in that piece. And while I spend hours and hours and hours every day striving for perfection. I'll play something over and over again until I can play it perfectly. And what I mean by that is no flaws. No flaws. And sometimes that makes me feel good when I can do it, but it's fleeting. It's only temporary. Because as many times as I can do it over and over again flawlessly, there will come a time that I'll mess up and I'll think my work was all for naught. And this is very relatable all across the board in all walks of life, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're involved in. You might be trying to reach a level of perfection. You might do things good for a while, but what do you do when you mess up? Even after all those times you've done it so well, you end up being disappointed in yourself. What I'm here to tell you is that sometimes it's important just to get the reps in. You know what I mean? I like to play through about 20 pieces a day, but I want to do them perfectly. Sometimes I play better when I'm not trying to be flawless because I'm more relaxed and I enjoy the process. I'll just play through the piece without trying to correct every single issue. And they are issues. But I play through them, and what it helps me to do is it helps me to adapt myself to my flaws. This is why I appreciate jazz musicians. Musicians don't have flaws. They use them. They use their flaws to their advantage. And that's what you need to learn to do. And that's where you know that you have matured in something. This is when you know that you've grown and you've adapted and you've made it work for you. That's how you know you've made it work for you. You've turned it to your advantage. And that's what jazz musicians do. How do you jazz up your life? How do you jazz up your life? Well, you strive for a mark. You know what you should be doing. You work toward it, and you want to get better every day. Whatever it is you're doing, whether it's in your workout, whether it's in grooming yourself, whether it's reaching a weight goal, whether it's, whether it's playing a musical instrument, no matter what it is, if you have perfectionist tendencies, understand that it's good to keep striving for a mark. But don't get a pit in your stomach about the misgivings, the flaws. When they come, use them to your advantage. Sometimes you do want to stop and really work on it, but you can't do that all the time because your level of expectation will go back to what it was in the nascent stages, which is I've got to be flawless. You can't be. You can't be. No professional musician, no concert pianist ever plays flawlessly. It just seems like it to the untrained ear. But to those who know, what they understand is that you work for a level of proficiency that stands out above the rest, but you will always have flaws, and you have to keep working through them. Work through your mistakes. When you are making mistakes in life, and this is where people in everyday life, in all walks of life, see it. I've made a mistake. I didn't live up to my expectation. I didn't reach my mark. I didn't do what it is I want to do. First of all, you might need to lower your expectations. Second of all, you need to develop a different mindset. Factor in mistakes. Factor in stumbling stones. Factor in those things and go, I'm going to make them, even though I'm striving for perfection. I'm going to make them. And when I do, I'm just going to say, hey, I might learn something new out of this. And this is what happens with playing the piano. When you play the piano, you make mistakes, and sometimes you find a better way to play things. And if you keep doing things to perfection all the time, all you're doing is following a script. And it might be one you've written for yourself. It might be the one that's been written for you, you believe, all of your life. It might be the one that's been impressed upon you for so many years, and you're disappointed because you didn't live up to what mommy and daddy said should be, or you didn't reach the mark that you feel like everyone else is. But what you have to understand is that the level of maturity is when you adapt and you make the missteps and you make the flaws work for you. And sometimes within these dashed expectations, you find a better way. And that's what I'm learning to do. I'm not quite there yet, but it's a process for me. And I'm sure that it's something that will continue all the rest of my life. Heck, I feel that way when I make these videos. I want to make them to a level of expectation that I have in my own mind that I feel is at least adequate or acceptable, palatable. But a lot of times I don't feel like it makes it there. And the more I relax and the less I care, the better my videos are, I believe. So, you cannot be, let me make this as one of my last points here. You cannot develop the artist within you. You cannot develop the artist within you if you don't allow yourself to relax and be okay with mistakes. Because all you're doing otherwise is just following a script. And when you relax and when you're okay with imperfection, the artist in you comes out. There's a flow that comes out. And you might find out that you're doing it better now. At least you'll enjoy it more. I'll tell you what, there's nothing like trying to be perfect at something, and then in some cases you reach it, but you don't care for it anymore because you burnt out because you've tried too hard. Don't burn out. Don't burn out. Stop being disappointed with yourself. And stop trying to be flawless because you're not going to be. It's your flaws that make you unique. And there's nothing that's helped me to understand that better than playing the piano. What is it that's in your life that's really kind of snapped their fingers at you and made you wake up and think? Much in the same way that I'm talking about right now. Put that in the comments down below. I'd like to know because I can learn something from you. All right, guys, I've got to get going, but I appreciate the fact that you've even given me the time to listen this far. I hope this has helped. Listen to a lot of my other videos. I think you'll get a lot out of them. If you haven't liked this so far, please do so. Hit the notification bell so you'll be apprised of other videos coming out. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, guys. Be safe out there and be wise.